Parliamentarian Vimal Veerawangsa has raised concerns as to why an international agency is housed within the Prime Ministerial Office complex.
I say this with much responsibility. There is no corporate branch of Millennium Challenge Corporation or any other American company at Temple Trees. You are just shouting to gain media attention.
Now, as MP Vimal Veerawangsa claimed in Parliament, he then produced a letter substantiating his claim. Let's have a look.
Minister Sagala Ratnayaka, I will prove this today and you must resign from your position. I have found a letter with the heading of the Prime Minister's office. This letter was created on the 15th of February 2019 and was forwarded to W.H. Karunaratne, the Secretary of the Ministry of Land and Parliamentary Reforms. R. Sirivardhana, the National Consultant Coordinator at the Sri Lankan office of Millennium Challenge Corporation, has signed the respective document. The address stated in the letter is second floor, new building, North Wing, Temple Trees, Colombo 3. What do you have to say now, Minister Sagala Ratnayaka?
First of all, a very good evening to you joining us from home. Now let's start off with a look at this statement and the what was produced, the letter that was produced by MP Vimal Veerawangsa. Now, the MCC, or the Millennium Challenge Corporation, is a US government agency that helps lead the fight against global poverty. However, in Sri Lanka, they state that their involvement is in the transportation and land sector. Now, the US ambassador to Sri Lanka, Elena B. Teplitz, last month is reported to have said that the MCC will focus on certain issues connected with the transportation as well as roads and land registrations in Sri Lanka. Now, there was no elaborations on the specifics, however. In a different article published by the MCC Sri Lanka on the 28th of February 2019, it mentions that a delegation from the United States government's Millennium Challenge Corporation, led by Managing Director for Europe, Asia Pacific and Latin America, Caroline Nguyen, and Managing Director for Selection, Eligibility and Policy Performance, Daniel Barnes, arrived in Sri Lanka. Now, according to this particular article, the proposed MCC Sri Lanka Compact is designed to spur economic growth and would invest in projects in the transport and land sectors. Now, as you can see, this is the Sri Lanka proposed compact project. But to understand the issue, let's go back to the 28th of October. Let's take a step back and go back to the 28th of October 2018, where President Maithripala Sirisena gave the nation his reasons as to why he sacked Ranil Wickremesinghe from his prime ministerial position.
Another is the Land Ordinance Special Act, which was presented to Cabinet last week. Then there was the paper on establishing a land bank. I strongly protested and postponed those Cabinet papers. The majority of Cabinet ministers were against these proposals. If the last week's Land Ordinance Special Act was passed by the Cabinet and then by the Parliament, all the lands of our motherland could be brought outright by foreigners without any difficulty.
Now, President Maithripala Sirisena is not alone in his concern for the alienation of land in Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka's third executive president, Ranasinghe Premadasa, also expressed his concerns about any attempt to usurp ownership of lands. Now, His Excellency had this to say. He said, however far, however close, or however powerful any nation may be, it has no right to aspire to control other nations. Now, News First is in search of several answers that the public wishes to be informed of. First of all, what is this initiative? Has it been passed in Parliament? The concerns are being raised because of the blatant falsehood, most recently in the terms of the Hambantota oil refinery, which is the most recent example. Almost all the details have turned out to be pie in the sky. Now, the USA is unlikely of entering any territory unless lawfully invited by a particular parliament. Is this unpatriotic behavior all about the greed to stay in power? And is this why our leaders play such a dynamic role in alienating our land, thus betraying our nation? The interest by the MCC, or the Millennium Challenge Corporation, becomes questionable when taking a look at the track record of our current government. Public trust and public funds have been gravely mishandled through the infamous bond scam, and instances where land that belongs to our very own motherland and our country have been a common handout to countries that bring in cloak and dagger investments, as recently we witnessed through the Hambantota oil refinery project. Now the question remains as to why Minister Sagala Ratnayaka openly lied in Parliament regarding the location of the local MCC office. Finally, the ministers, by virtue of being in the cabinet, do not enjoy any right to alienate our lands without following the due process. Sri Lanka is a non-aligned nation. That is stated in our national foreign policy. All other nations interested in working with Sri Lanka should respect that tradition, and most of all, our own leaders should not sell our nation for greed and hunger to hold on to power. On the 21st of June 1990, Nelson Mandela arrived at Arundel Hall at the City College of New York for a town hall meeting anchored by Ted Koppel of ABC News' Koppel Report. Mandela was grilled during the interview, in which he was accused of playing favorites to America's rivals. However, Mandela's answer brought light to the inception of politics and the United States' thirst for ultimate power. Take a look.
One of the mistakes which some political analysts make is to think that their enemies should be our enemies. We have our own struggle, which we are conducting. We are grateful to the world for supporting our struggle. But nevertheless, we are an independent organization with its own policy. Our attitude towards any country is determined by the attitude of that country to our struggle. They do not support it only in rhetoric. They are placing resources at our disposal for us to win the struggle.